It seems like students either love or hate PowerPoint. So I decided to put together this and try to make this, make it a painless PowerPoint for both of us. First of all, most PowerPoints are filled with blobs of text and complicated graphs that seem to grow and consume everything, including the speaker. A PowerPoint is not a dressed-up paper. So stop loading up slides with lots of words, especially if it is a supportive visual, not the main feature. If you're the featured speaker, nobody can really comprehend what you're saying and read something else at the same time. Both functions use the same part of the brain. Now, if you're doing a webinar or some other major project, then more text is acceptable within limits. As Seth Godin says, why PowerPoint? It's to communicate, to help them understand. Communication is about getting others to adopt your point of view, to help them understand why you're excited or sad or optimistic or whatever else. A PowerPoint is more like an infomercial than an information essay. Still, consider including elements that address ethos, credibility and authority, or logos, facts, and statistics that support the claim or argument, as well as pathos, emotional or motivational appeal. Now, there are a few basic guidelines to follow when you're doing a PowerPoint. The content needs to be clear and condensed. Clarity, keep it simple and super easy to read. Control those creative outbursts and set a consistent tone. So let's take a look at each of these. First of all, content. Follow the one principle. One point or concept per slide, one image per point, and in one moment is all it should take for a viewer to read or understand the slide. To do that, you use minimal text for maximum readability. Keywords or fragments. Do not use full sentences. Remember, this is not a paper, so you can use like a subject verb, or like one principle, minimal text. I don't have full sentences there, just the key words. So if you have a paragraph, a bulk of information, like what I'm actually saying here, put that into the notes section, and because that's to be read by the speaker, not on the slide. You don't want your audience reading all that, just you. And in a major project, that way the bulk, those big text dense information, that is still in there, so you still get credit for it, but it's not on the slide where it can be a little bit confusing and just too much. Follow the 6x6 rule. No more than 6 words per line, no more than 6 lines per slide, and that'll give you a good average to use. You also want to have minimal images or graphs. Graphs, if they're used, need to be understood within seconds. So avoid all that chart junk. Fancy shading patterns, that does nothing but create the 2C effect, comical and confusing. So don't try too hard to jazz up the chart. Think thin for line thickness and discrete for colors. Thick lines and garish colors, that just distracts the reader. It's not effective. Let's look at clarity. So you want huge font with high contrast. So huge font like 24 point or bigger. That enables audience members that are sitting in the back of the room to still read what's on your slide. Use formatting options for the different levels, kind of like a minimalistic outline. Within the text, you have choices of size, making it bold, underlining, or color coding the text. You can also insert a smart art or use some other option like that, as long as you have very few words to clutter it up. That's a key thing there. Using pictures instead of words appeals to the kid in all of us. Facebook, Pinterest, and Instagram, those all prove that we are never too old for picture books. One appropriate and powerful image for the idea is best. Make it as big as you can, and remember, less is more here. Control those creative outbursts. You want to avoid fancy and fussy backgrounds. Now, if it's a branding issue, that's fine. But let's not get into all the plaids and swirls, and Keep it simple so we can focus on the words and the images that you're using. Those are the most powerful elements that you can use, not the background. The background is like a frame. A black frame, is like I've used here, is nice and simple. You could use white as well. You could use another color. Doesn't matter. Just keep it simple. Few font styles are best, like 2 maximum. Here, boring is okay, because the goal is readability. Now, I suggest a sans serif for your titles and heading, like I've used up there with the Arial. The serif fonts, those go really good in bullets or body text. And for example, I've used Times New Roman here. The serifs help you recognize the characters and thus the words faster. It makes the text more readable. You also want to use consistent image styles, same tone or mood, etc., so that everything coordinates. Like when you're getting dressed for the day, you like to coordinate. So same thing with your images. Be consistent and limited with your color palette as well. You don't want a big garish look. So 3 or less is a good rule of thumb there. Now you want to set a consistent tone. Pick a style and stick with it, one that matches your topic and the purpose of your presentation is best. That goes for image types as well. Remember to give credit to those images sources too. The ones I've used in this presentation come from the creativecommons.org and pixabay.com, and you'll see that listed on that last slide with my other sources. An appropriate and consistent tone helps you reach your target audience and enhances your credibility with them. So make sure you set that consistent tone. Keep it simple. That's the bottom line. Keep it short and simple. Apply the billboard test. Could people read and understand the information on that slide if they're driving past it? If you have a lot of verbiage or long blocks of text, remember that goes in the notes section, not on the slide. And as promised, here are some recommended resources where you can take a look at what some other people say. And you'll see that I've used some of these ideas throughout this slide. When you're in a PowerPoint, properly formatted in-text citations are seldom used. That's to maintain that minimal text guideline. Charts may have a source credited in the explanation on that slide, but definitely list your sources on a final slide acknowledging where you got your information from. This is where you can use that proper formatting according to the style standards set by your school.